The American Midwest, September 1944. A land of neat streets, clipped lawns, and wooden houses built to keep the outside world firmly at bay. In towns like Mattoon, Illinois, nights were quiet, predictable, safe. And then people began waking up. Not to noise, not to light, but to a smell. Something sweet, chemical, wrong. Men and women lay frozen in their beds, unable to move their limbs. Some felt their chests tighten, others retched or fainted. A few claimed they saw a figure outside their window, a man moving through the darkness just beyond the glass. Within days, the town believed it was under attack. Someone, they said, was pumping gas into people's homes as they slept. The newspapers gave him a name almost immediately, half mocking, half terrified: the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. Police sirens cut through the night. Armed men sat on porches until dawn. Curtains twitched at the slightest movement. Every smell became suspect, every shadow a threat. This was not a ghost story passed down through generations. It unfolded in real time, recorded in police reports, hospital visits, and national headlines. And yet when it was over, there were no arrests, no charges, no clear explanation. Just a town left wondering what, if anything, had been really stalking them in the dark. Tonight we return to Mattoon, to the bedrooms, the blackout nights, and the fear that seeped through open windows, to ask, was the Mad Gasser a criminal prowler, or something far less tangible and far more unsettling? Mattoon was home to roughly 15,000 people. A railway town built around industry and transport, trains rolled through the day and night, carrying fuel, chemicals, and materials vital to the war effort. And in 1944, the war was never far from anyone's mind. Across the Atlantic, Allied troops were fighting their way through Europe. Newspapers were filled with images of gas masks, chemical warfare drills, and warnings about airborne threats. Civilians were taught to think in terms of contamination, invisible dangers that moved on the wind. Even in America, blackout drills were common. Lights dimmed, curtains drawn, homes sealed against imagined attack. Mattoon lived beneath smokestacks and rail lines, surrounded by factories and storage depots that handled substances most residents never questioned. They trusted that what moved through their town was controlled, contained. But when the first reports came in, that trust fractured. Because the fear people felt was already familiar. Gas was not a medieval terror or a folkloric one. It was modern, scientific, real. And once the idea took hold, it spread quickly. Just after midnight on September the 5th, a woman woke suddenly in her bedroom. She felt dizzy, nauseous. Her legs wouldn't respond when she tried to move. As panic set in, she noticed a strange smell filling the room. Not smoke, not natural gas, but something sweet and metallic. She believed someone had sprayed it through a window. When police arrived, they found no sign of forced entry. No broken glass, no intruder, nothing that explained what she had experienced. And then the calls began to multiply. Another woman, then another household. Similar symptoms, similar smells, similar fear. Some victims reported temporary paralysis. Others collapsed or vomited. A few claimed they glimpsed a figure outside. A man moving away from the house, sometimes described as carrying a device. Descriptions varied wildly. Tall, short, dark clothing, a gas mask. The newspapers seized on the story. Headlines spoke of a phantom anesthetic prowler. The idea that someone was silently disabling entire households captured the public imagination almost instantly. Mattoon was no longer just uneasy, it was terrified. Police increased patrols. Officers moved through neighbourhoods with torches, checking windows, testing air, questioning residents. They found nothing. Still, the town took matters into its own hands. Men armed themselves and sat on porches through the night. Shotguns rested across knees. Rifles leaning against railings. Neighbours watched neighbours. Every unfamiliar smell became suspect. Industrial fumes, paint, household chemicals. None of it felt neutral anymore. The reports continued. Men and teenagers now claimed to be affected, undermining the idea that this was simply nervous imagination. Doctors confirmed symptoms: nausea, weakness, rapid heart rate, but could not identify a cause. There was no evidence of poison, no residue, no suspect to chase. Mattoon existed in a state of suspended dread, caught between certainty that something was wrong and the complete absence of proof. Two explanations eventually emerged. The first was psychological. Mass psychogenic illness, what used to be called mass hysteria. Under intense stress, fear can produce real physical symptoms. Wartime anxiety, amplified by headlines and rumour, may have turned ordinary sensations into perceived attacks. Once the idea of the mad gasser existed, expectation did the rest, but the theory has its limits. Some victims were asleep before symptoms began, some had not heard the earlier reports, and the physical effects were real enough to send people to hospital. The second explanation is more unsettling. Industrial chemicals. Mattoon's railways carried fuels and solvents. Safety standards in the 1940s were lax by modern standards. Certain gases could cause temporary paralysis, nausea, and strange odours, and could dissipate quickly, leaving no trace. This explanation accounts for the lack of evidence, the sudden start, the sudden stop. But no company was blamed, no official investigation was released, and no authority ever claimed responsibility. And so, the truth remained just out of reach. And then, as abruptly as it began, the report stopped. No arrests were made, no charges filed, no final explanation offered. The mad gasser vanished, but the unease lingered. The story was quietly dismissed in later years, folded into lists of mass panics and wartime oddities, yet, for those who lived through it, the experience was real. They had smelled something, they had felt their bodies fail them, they had believed utterly that their homes were no longer safe. The mad gasser of Mattoon was not a monster in the folkloric sense. No cave, no lair, no capture. Instead, it was a reminder of how fragile certainty can be, how quickly fear spreads when answers don't arrive, and how sometimes the most disturbing stories are the ones that end without resolution.